Hello and welcome to this training video brought to you by the COVID-19 fiscal team. In this video, we will explain the expense reimbursement process. We will go over what it is, some tools and resources, and how to complete the form. Along the way, we'll also cover some tips and tricks. What is expense reimbursement? It is needed when a CDPHE employee or subcontractor travels for state business purposes and covers the costs upfront. Expenses are then reimbursed back to the employee after proper documentation has been provided. Expense reimbursement covers all travel for Global Insight employees. For state employees, any travel outside of the 35-mile radius around the traveler's regular work location for official state business and requires the spending of the night. Discuss the 14-hour rule with your supervisor if you feel that single-day trips should qualify for per diem rates. There are some really good resources out there to help you become familiar with all of the rules and procedures around getting reimbursed for work-related travel. The first document is the 2020 Department Fiscal Procedures Manual, specifically Chapter 6. The second is the U.S. General Services Administration website, which lists all of the per diem rates around the country. The third resource is a travel reimbursement FAQ document. This can be especially helpful if this is your first time filling out one of these forms. Now let's go over some information about per diem, or the funds that the state provides for your meals while traveling for business. The GSA website that I mentioned earlier is the place to go to see the rates for the location that you're traveling to. You will notice that rates change based on different tourist seasons. Make sure to list the right ones on your form. If you notice that the place that you're traveling to isn't listed on the GSA site, use the standard rate. On the day that you're traveling to your destination and the day that you're coming back, you only get 75% of the per diem rate. The GSA site lists this decreased amount and the specific meals you're provided. On the day that you are there for the entire day, you get 100% of the amount listed to cover your meals, tips, and incidentals. If you are provided meals, such as from your hosting agency, you must subtract that amount listed on the GSA site on your reimbursement form. Alcohol and recreational drugs are not covered by per diem. I don't know about you, but that was a lot of information. Let's recap what we just covered. Per diem is based on the zip code that you're traveling to and back from. These can vary by tourism seasons. The GSA website has all of these details. On the day that you get there and the day that you drive home, you only get 75% of the per diem rate. Again, this is found on the GSA website. Tips are included in your per diem, so if you have $25 to spend on dinner and your bill is $30, you are personally responsible for the remaining. On another note, if your bill is only $10, you still receive $25 to cover your meal. If meals were provided at the location that you were traveling to, then you subtract the per diem meal rate from your reimbursement request. So if the GSA site says that you were allotted $15 for lunch, and the meeting that you went to provided lunch, you would subtract $15 from your reimbursement request. On the form, you must list out the address of where you're driving from and arriving to. So when filling out the form, please include the street address to help with processing time. In the Fiscal Procedures Manual, this table is listed. It helps you figure out if you need to receipt or not. The main rule of thumb is if it's over $25, then the answer is yes, except for food and those things covered under per diem rates. It is important to note that anytime you stay at a hotel, you will need an itemized receipt to submit with your expense reimbursement form. No exceptions to this can be made. If you would like to receive your reimbursement of funds electronically, all you need to do is fill out the EFT form, and then scan a voided check and send both documents to the CDPHE COVID email box. There may be follow-up confirmation that you sent the EFT information and someone is not trying to steal your identity. Then your funds can be distributed electronically after you have received at least one check at the address provided on your W-9. Let's review the actual expense reimbursement form now that we've covered some information about it. The first thing needed is your name, then the division that you're working under. For Insight Global employees, this is DC'd. If you are a CDPHE employee, then we need to list your employee ID number. This is the same as your Kronos number. Then we need your phone number. If you are not a CDPHE employee, please list your address. Ensure that this is listed properly, especially if you haven't elected for EFT. This is where your check will be sent in the mail. The next section is describing the purpose of the reimbursement. It is very important for record-keeping needs that if you were working in COVID-19 response operations, that you list that here. The dates on this sheet refers to the dates of your travel or overnight stay at the destination address. Each date gets its own line. The next section is the origin and destination address. As I mentioned earlier, in order to process this form, we need street addresses, so please don't just list a city. List the number of miles that you traveled, and the formulas will tally the mileage reimbursement. In the meals per diem, fill out the travel days in the 75% column and the days that you were there the entire day in the 100% column. Remember to go to the GSA website for these numbers. Lodging rates need to be listed here as well, and any itemized receipts for the hotel must be attached to this form. No exceptions for this can be made. If you have any miscellaneous expenses, such as airport parking, it's important to mark this here. All purchases must be exact, and all charges exceeding $25 need to be accompanied with a receipt. And we need your signature along with your CDPHE supervisor. Then you need to save the document. Remember to hit Save As in order to avoid an error message. Then you can email it to the CDPHE COVID email box along with any necessary attachments. Let's go through an example. On September 5th, you drove from your home address, this would be the departure address, to a testing site in Boulder at a nursing home. You grabbed a $10 lunch on the way, and your dinner was provided by the local public health agency, and you paid $12 in parking fees at the hotel. The next day, your breakfast and lunch was provided by the nursing home that you're testing at, and you spent $15 on dinner and left a $5 tip. You paid $12 in parking fees again. On September 7th, you ate breakfast at the hotel and worked at the site, and then grabbed a $10 lunch on the way out of Boulder, back home. In order to figure out the per diem rates for Boulder, you need to go to the GSA website and enter the zip code of where you were staying. Then you can see all of the details that you need, such as per diem rates for lodging, travel day meals, and days that you're there 100%. You can use this information to fill out the form. Some of the important pieces to note are the starting and end addresses and the total of miles driven. Since some meals were provided, you would have to deduct them from the cost of the per diem for that day. You can mark that in the miscellaneous column on the form along with your parking fees. When you submit the form, you would also have to include the itemized hotel receipt. Now let's go over some important deadlines. In order for the reimbursement to be non-taxable to the requester, the form must be submitted and processed within 60 days. CDPHE fiscal staff need 30 days to process the form. After 60 days, the funds will be taxable to the requester, and after 90 days, the form cannot be processed. You can typically expect all payments within 45 days. In order to not add any delays to the process, here are some tips. Ensure the form that you submit is complete and accurate. Each time an error is fixed or information added, all signatures need to be recompleted and information re-reviewed. This can impact the required 60-day turnaround for the form to be submitted and processed. Before we end, let's recap the main points of this video. You must utilize the GSA website to get the per diem information for the location that you're going to. Then you can complete your form in its entirety and get the required signatures. You as the requester sign the requester line. If you are a state employee, speak with your supervisor about who needs to sign it before it gets forwarded to the fiscal department. If you are not an employee of the state of Colorado, please submit the form to your contact at the state. Then you need to gather all of the required attachments, such as itemized receipts for purchases and $25 or more on hotels. Since the deadline is 60 days to have the form submitted and completed, you should double check that everything is accurate and filled out. Going back and forth on errors can add time to processing. Then you email it to the CDPHE COVID email box, and our fiscal staff will process the form, usually within 45 days. That's it. We hope this video was helpful in understanding the expense reimbursement process. Thank you for watching and all of your hard work.